The flashing lights of primetime television, the multi-million-dollar contracts signed in towering glass boardrooms, the immaculate superstars whose jerseys line the walls of literally every sporting goods store in the country. This is the grand illusion of the National Football League. It is a brilliant, shimmering surface, meticulously designed to captivate 80,000 screaming souls on a Sunday afternoon. But today, we are going to look right past that pristine exterior. We are going to examine the desperate, unseen psychological battle raging in the shadows, at the very bottom of the roster. Welcome to NFL Nexus. I'm your host, and before we unravel the brutal reality of the offseason, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and comment on what you thought as we go along. And, if you truly want to support the deep dives we do here, consider becoming a channel member. Okay, take a breath, let's step into the dark together. Because the reality of professional football is far more punishing and far more fascinating than those Sunday broadcasts will ever let you see.
So, you have to ask yourself, what actually happens when the draft lights fade? Think about April. The NFL draft is a spectacle of boundless, almost intoxicating hope. Young men walk across a brilliantly lit stage, they put on a cap, and they embrace the commissioner. Tears are shed, generational wealth is secured in an absolute instant. But by May, those lights are abruptly, unapologetically shut off. The confetti is swept off the floor and thrown into the garbage. For the vast majority of players, those who were not selected in the first round, those who weren't drafted at all, and the aging veterans clinging desperately to the final shreds of their careers, the summer is absolutely not a time of celebration. It is a time of profound, suffocating psychological pressure. It's a period defined by an eerie, heavy silence, the ringing phone that never comes, the lingering toxic doubt creeping into the back of the mind. It's the sudden, terrifying realization that the margin between a lifelong dream and the abrupt, quiet end of the road is separated by a single, agonizingly thin line of text on a transaction wire.
You see, the mathematics of the league are completely ruthless. The 53-man roster is a psychological gauntlet. We often use the phrase zero-sum game casually, but football is a zero-sum game in the most terrifying, literal sense imaginable. A locker room is a physical space. It has a finite, rigid number of chairs bolted to the floor. For you to sit down, someone else must literally be told to leave the building forever. Entering the summer of 2026, the Miami Dolphins' offseason roster is pushed to its absolute maximum capacity. I want you to really visualize this. Imagine walking into a fluorescent-lit locker room every single morning at 5:30 a.m. You sit down next to a man. You eat breakfast with him. You bleed with him in the sweltering 100-degree heat of the practice field, knowing intimately that his failure is your only path to survival. You are quite literally waiting for another human being to lose his livelihood so you can maintain yours. The mental tension of that environment is immense. It breeds an atmosphere of profound paranoia and isolation, even when you're standing in a room filled with 90 other men.
Now, this quiet desperation is fueled by a ruthless mechanism. We call it the waiver wire. It is essentially the NFL's recycling bin. For teams looking to build depth and uncover hidden value, like the Miami Dolphins under general manager John Sullivan, salvation often doesn't come from a splashy, headline-grabbing free agent signing. No, it comes from the discarded hopes of players cut by other franchises. Sullivan has made it abundantly clear to anyone paying attention. There will not be much action on the open market for the Dolphins this summer. They are hunting on the waiver wire. They are waiting. And this strategy transforms the entire month of August into an excruciatingly anxious waiting game. It's a totally counterintuitive truth of roster building. The franchise isn't necessarily looking to create a star in their own building. They're actively waiting for a mistake in another city. They're waiting for a pulled hamstring in a rival's camp. They're waiting for a younger player to flash potential 1,000 miles away, forcing some other general manager to make a difficult cut.
30. I want you to dwell on that number for a moment. In the real world, turning 30 is the beginning of your prime, right? It's a time of settling into your true self, your career, your life. But in the National Football League, turning 30 is a psychological weight that drags you squarely toward the abyss. Right now, the Miami Dolphins have a glaring, unforgiving need at the safety position. The market is incredibly barren of youth, and so everything hinges on this terrifying number. It forces a general manager like John Sullivan into a tense, highly calculated waiting game. He is entirely unwilling to commit long-term resources to bodies that have endured over a decade of high-speed collisions. The elite physical traits are fading. It's just biology. The morning recovery takes a day longer now, requiring hours in ice tubs and agonizing physical therapy just to reach a baseline level of normal. The explosion off the line of scrimmage, it's a fraction of a second slower. And the truly terrifying part for the athlete, the player knows it. Their mind commands the body to execute an action it has performed 10,000 times flawlessly. And for the first time in their life, the body betrays them. Just look at the names available out there right now. Men like Donovan Wilson, Jimmy Ward, and Xavier Woods. Rayshawn Jenkins, Deion Bush, and Jabril Peppers.
Make no mistake, these are warriors. These are men who have delivered bone-crushing hits on national television. They've secured game-winning interceptions in the biting, freezing cold of December. But today, they are all on the wrong side of 30. And Miami has a very complicated, painful history with this specific archetype. We all remember Ashton Davis. He was a frustrating starter. Jordan Poyer was brought in for guidance but ended up a leadership flop. Marcus May, he was cut mid-season in 2024. So these veterans are currently left in absolute limbo. They wake up every morning in pristine, echoing houses. They feel that deep, lingering ache in their joints, and they stare at a silent smartphone, just hoping for one last call, one last opportunity to strap on a helmet and prove they are not ghosts. It is a deeply humbling, almost humiliating psychological experience for men who have been the most revered, untouchable athletes in their zip code since they were 10 years old.
This suffocating, invisible pressure fractures the locker room into two entirely distinct psychological profiles. On one side, you have the guaranteed roster spot. This player possesses what we call an elite mental state. Their mind is quiet, it's still. They are focusing purely on execution, on mastering the subtle, microscopic nuances of the playbook, on the flawless fluidity of their technique. Why? Because they have guaranteed money resting comfortably in their bank account. But on the exact opposite side of the room, you have the fringe roster contender. Their brain is a violent, chaotic storm of overthinking. They are actively, continuously battling the fear of the void. They know in their bones, that if they drop a single pass in a completely meaningless Tuesday afternoon drill, it might literally trigger the end of their entire career. And here is the fascinating psychological truth. This pressure actually changes how a human body moves. Overthinking makes you slow. Fear makes you hesitant. The fringe player is fighting his own nervous system, fighting his own surging, unhelpful adrenaline just as much as he is fighting the 300-pound man lined up across from him.
The sheer, unadulterated cruelty of this business is captured perfectly in a single devastating reality facing the Miami Dolphins right now. The source material states, the Dolphins may end up needing to wait for roster cuts elsewhere across the league at the end of August. I want you to read that line again. Let the absolute weight of it truly sink into your mind. Imagine you are a fringe player currently fighting for your life on the Miami Dolphins roster. You are sweating through exhaustive, physically destructive two-a-days in the suffocating 100% humidity of South Florida. You are sacrificing your cartilage, your brain, your body, and yet you know intimately that the front office is actively looking right past you. They are actively biding their time, just waiting to replace you with a name that is currently wearing a different jersey in a completely different city. The psychological torture of knowing your employer is simply waiting until someone marginally better gets fired elsewhere. Well, it requires an ironclad, almost unhinged mind to not completely collapse under the weight of that realization.
And that brutal reality brings us to the absolute bottom of the hierarchy, the undrafted. For the Miami Dolphins 2026 undrafted rookies, the climb isn't just steep, it is nearly vertical. An undrafted player is an athlete who is forced to overcome a systemic, institutional deficit of trust. The organization has invested zero draft capital in you. The financial disparity literally dictates the politics of the entire room. Think about it. If a team cuts a first-round pick, the franchise loses millions of dollars, and the general manager looks like an absolute fool on national television. But if they cut an undrafted rookie, the financial impact is zero. Literally no one blinks. The player simply packs a canvas duffel bag, walks to his car, and disappears into the humid Florida afternoon, never to be heard from again. As an undrafted player, you are relying on sheer willpower and a completely flawless margin of error. Entering a locker room that is already pushed to its absolute maximum capacity, these rookies carry a monumental psychological burden. They must execute with absolute robotic perfection just to warrant a passing second glance from the coaching staff.
Let's look closer at the impossibly steep climbs these specific rookies face. First, we have quarterback Mark Gronowski out of Iowa. He is battling for the QB3 role, sitting behind Malik Willis and Quinn Ewers. His direct competition is Cam Miller, a guy who spent his entire rookie season absorbing the lightning speed of the pro game with the Raiders. But here's the massive mental hurdle for Gronowski. Even if he executes perfectly and wins the battle on the field, the prize he's fighting for might not even exist. The Dolphins might only decide to keep two quarterbacks on the final roster. He is fighting a desperate, exhausting war for a piece of territory that might be erased from the map entirely. Then we have running back Le'Veon Moss from Texas A&M. Now, he has the pure, unteachable talent, but his college durability was a massive pain point. Now, he stares up at an impenetrable concrete wall consisting of Devon Chain, Ollie Gordon II, and Jalen Wright. The room is completely overflowing. Moss literally needs a miraculous transaction,
a statistical improbability, a shock trade, or a catastrophic injury to a teammate just to pierce this crowded running back room. And what about edge Mason Reiger from Wisconsin? He shined incredibly brightly at the Shrine Bowl, but now he looks at a pass rush room featuring former first-round pick Chop Robinson, Joshua Uche, Robert Beal Jr., David Ajabo, plus 2 brand-new draft choices. The competition is theoretically wide open, but the bodies are plenty, and his margin for error is absolute zero. Then there is the deeply fascinating mental battle of defensive tackle Rene Konga from Louisville. Konga is arguably the most athletically gifted anomaly of this entire undrafted group. His pro day testing was dynamic. His twitchiness and explosion on film are completely undeniable, but his high-level moments, they are just too irregular. His tape is a wild pendulum, swinging between sheer brilliance and mind-numbing mistakes. So his true challenge in this camp isn't just physical, it's deeply psychological and interpersonal. He has mere weeks to forge a profound, unshakable trust with defensive line coach Austin Clark. Every single repetition in those grueling Tuesday afternoon drills is a high-stakes job interview. Every missed assignment, every slight, imperceptible hesitation is a permanent strike against his character. He looks around at a room anchored by massive names like Zach Sealer, Kenneth Grant, Jordan Phillips, and Zeke Biggers.
Sometimes, though, the mind must step up and compensate for the body. Stepping into the absolute swirling chaos of the safety room is what we can call the high IQ challenger. This is undrafted rookie Louis Moore from Indiana. He stares down a daunting gauntlet of established yet highly vulnerable veterans. We're talking Lonnie Johnson, Zane Anderson, second-year Dante Trader Jr., third-year Omar Brown, and fifth-round pick Michael Toffee. Moore is 25 years old. He is absolutely not the most explosive athlete in the building. He knows that. The coaches know that. But he possesses a remarkably high football IQ and a quiet, stoic maturity forged during a national championship run. In a desperate battle for a fringe roster spot, where the physical margins are essentially non-existent, Moore must use his intellect as a sharpened weapon to mask his athletic deficiencies. He has to process the geometry of the field faster than anyone else. He has to anticipate the quarterback's eyes a split second sooner, and he must mentally outmaneuver the larger, faster veterans standing in his way. It is a game of high-stakes neurological chess, played at 20 miles per hour, where a single false step means a one-way plane ticket back home.
As this unforgiving summer presses on, the psychological toll compounds exponentially. You can actually track the descent. Week 1 of training camp is what I call the illusion of opportunity. Everyone gets reps, the grass is pristine and uncut, everyone feels like they have a legitimate, honest shot. The fresh adrenaline masks the pain in their joints. But by week 3, the brutal mental grind sets in. The Florida humidity becomes suffocating, pressing down on the players like a physical wet blanket. The body is battered with micro tears and deep, aching bone bruises. The coaches' voices grow hoarse from screaming over the whistle. The playbook suddenly expands into a terrifying labyrinth, and the mental mistakes start to multiply. The grand illusion begins to violently shatter as the starting lineups silently solidify. And then comes week 4, the 53-man reality. The ticking clock grows absolutely deafening. The cuts begin in the dark, quiet hours of the morning. You walk into the facility with your coffee, and you see empty, completely cleaned-out lockers where your friends used to sit. The reality of final cutdowns is a cold, calculated business decision that abruptly ends lifelong dreams on a random Tuesday morning.
And so, we arrive at the absolute crux of the matter, the undeniable, inescapable truth of the fringe. When the margin of error is mathematically zero, confidence becomes a weapon, and fear becomes an anchor. Think about this deeply. If a fringe player steps onto the practice field consumed by the terrifying, paralyzing fear of making a mistake, that very fear will physically bind his muscles. He will hesitate for a fraction of a second, and because of that hesitation, he will be cut. To survive the 53-man crucible, a player must fabricate an almost delusional, impenetrable level of self-belief. They must look across the line at veterans holding contracts worth guaranteed millions. They must look at a depth chart on the wall that mathematically excludes them from existence. And they must decide, with absolute, unwavering certainty, that they are undeniably meant to be there. It is a razor-thin, terrifying tightrope walk. A delicate balance between the elite mental state required to survive and the devastating, inescapable collapse caused by the fear of the void.
So I want to leave you with this final, lingering thought. It's a reality that plays out in the shadows of literally every single NFL facility across the country. When the final cuts are made at the end of August, when the waiver wire is ruthlessly scoured by general managers making their cold, life-altering calculations, who is going to break under that relentless, suffocating psychological pressure, and who, against all insurmountable odds, will simply refuse to be erased? Thank you for exploring the darkest, hidden depths of the game with us today on this explainer from NFL Nexus. If this journey into the mind of the athlete shifted your perspective even a little bit, please remember to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button on the video, and comment below on what you thought of this breakdown. And again, to support the deep analytical dives we do here, please consider becoming a channel member. Until next time, keep looking past the stadium lights and keep questioning the true cost of the game.